We are going to talk about why Linux is better. We're going to talk about things that Linux can do that you just cannot do in Windows or can't do in Windows very well. Okay, all right. Before we start, I'd like to introduce my speakers tonight. We've got C. Smith, Oscalit, Pingcasts, myself, Stats, and the Linux guy. Well, interestingly enough, there are a number of things that Linux can do that Windows really just doesn't do well. And one of them, one of my panel members suggested that we talk about ext4. And when we talk about ext4, we're talking about our file systems. They don't fragment. We don't have to defragment our hard drives every few weeks. Instead, the way the file system lays everything out is, you just don't get that much fragmentation, thereby slowing down the performance on your computer. Actually, my experience is with a defragmenter. I used to use a number of them when I was running Windows, and the thing is, it usually didn't take that long if you ran the defragmenter maybe once a week or so. How do you see it, Oscalit?
Defragging is a pain in the backside, so extension 4 and extension 2 and all those types of file formats where I don't have to do that is brilliant in my eyes. It saves me time and it's more productive. I don't have to spend time worrying about it, so that's a good thing, isn't it?
I definitely would say so. How do you see it, Pingcasts?
Defragmenting your hard disk sucks. It can, if you don't defragment your hard disk on Windows, you can wear out your hard disk because your computer has to work harder to get the fragmented files, and it's just slower, and it's great not having to deal with that on Linux.
Yeah, you gotta love it. Things just never slow down. How do you see that, Stats?
Yeah, thanks, Patrick. I think I was just learning how to do all that stuff on Windows, and was quite proud of myself. And I found when I turned to Linux that I didn't have to do all that sort of stuff. So I think it's an absolute bonus.
Now, another interesting thing about Linux is that we really don't consider viruses to be a threat. Last time I checked the wiki, it appeared that there were only 48 known viruses for Linux, and all of these, in order to work, requires root access. Whereas in Windows, I mean, come on, there are viruses all over the place, and I mean, it's so easy to get them. They can sneak in through Flash, through Java. There are other ways they can get into your system, bypassing your antivirus system and that sort of thing. So let's talk about that a little bit. How do you see viruses? Oscalit.
Well, viruses, it depends what you define a virus as. I'm pretty sure there's a lot of malware out there for Linux and all that type of stuff, but viruses, I wouldn't say so, because I'm sorry, but it's a thing to my heart. Viruses are things that can replicate themselves on your hard drive. Most of the viruses these days are malware that keylog you, do a man-in-the-browser attack. So yeah, I don't see it as that big a threat on Linux because first off, you do need root access, and plus with every kernel release, the virus will just become invalid.
Exactly. You know, every kernel release does depreciate those viruses and that sort of thing. And also, I mean, even if you were to download this malware and such, it really can't do anything unless you give it root privileges. How do you see it, Stats?
Yeah, Patrick, I think it's another reason why Linux is better. It's if you've got a system that's having to deal with all that sort of virus, malware, whatever you want to call it, from my perspective, it's basically an operating system that's using up a lot of energy, and it's just drawing away from what could be possibly a lot more productive system. So I think on that level, it's just something that's dragging the power away. That's how I see it.
Understood. Now, the Linux guy went on to say that was asking if there is any antivirus software for Linux. Yes, there are a number of them. Avast has a flavor for Linux now. You also have the Clam antivirus. And then, of course, I have a copy of Bitdefender for Unisys, and that one I actually downloaded for free and signed up for their code and everything. Although I haven't really had need to use it, I just have the Clam antivirus, and that works quite well. C. Smith also wanted to add that a virus generally, at most, can create a useless program in your home folder on your system. And another thing, viruses can creep into Wine on your system as well. Now, I can't imagine them doing much harm to your Linux system, but yes, you can get your Wine partition infected. I think you were the one that mentioned that to me before, Pingcasts.
Yeah, Wine is a translation layer for Windows, so you attempt to run other Windows programs, a virus you could risk gaining compatibility with viruses. It can't touch your system.
And of course, the best thing you can do in that situation, obviously, though, is to keep a backup of your wine directory that you can use, and then if it does become infected or something like that, you can just delete that wine directory, and then you can, of course, restore your backups. So that's a way around that one. Okay, now, another thing that is really great about Linux that Windows just cannot do is the fact that you can update your entire system with one click. Windows, we all know how Windows Update works. It updates Windows. It may update one little driver here and there or one other little program, but most of your programs you're going to have installed on your system, obviously, are going to, have their own updaters built in, whereas Linux, you just click one button, it updates everything. How do you see that, C. Smith?
It's a nice feature of Linux. You have all your updates in one place. How much more convenient can you get?
Oscalit?
Yeah, it's a great thing about Linux and other operating systems that work like that. So Macs work like that, and FreeBSD works like that, and it's pretty great. On Windows, of course, every program you have has to call home, as they call it, and that's just a pain in the backside. It uses up a lot of bandwidth and uses up God knows what else. Whereas with Linux, I can just, either if I'm using Ubuntu, I can just click on the button, it does it for me. If I'm using Arch or Gentoo or whatever, I can do updates through the terminal. Either way, it's a lot more simpler than having to go out on the internet and trying to find the latest source or the latest EXE, whatever you want to call it, and having to install it manually. It's a pain in the backside.
Pingcasts?
Oh yeah, it's great having the update click. And software repositories is great too. All of that's done through the repositories. That way you can download and install from the repositories. You don't have to go to some website you've never gone before and install some software that might screw up your system.
Stats.
Yeah, totally agree with Pincast there, because if you're updating your whole system and everything sort of goes along with it, it's brilliant because, like you said, if you're on say Windows and you've got something you want to go and look at some software, you go onto different sites that can cause problems. It's just a lot better.
Yeah, now, High6 went on to say that Linux has no registry problems like Windows. Well, simply, Linux doesn't have a registry. But once you update, no reboot is needed. And I was actually going to bring this up. Somebody is on the same wavelength I am here, unless, of course, you update the kernel. So that's something that's really nice, too. So, for instance, let's say I run update, Firefox gets updated, all these programs get updated while I'm actually use them. When I close the program, all I have to do is reopen it, and it's the next version. No reboot required. All right, let's move on. Now, here's another thing that Linux really excels over Windows, and that is servers. For anyone who thinks that Windows is gaining where the server market is concerned, I would ask you to wake up and join the 21st century, folks. Linux can and does serve up anything and everything, and does it easily as well. It's fast, secure, easy to configure, and very scalable. Oscalit.
Windows Server? Don't make me laugh. I'll be hacking that in no time at all. No security. There's nothing there. It's old. Why Windows even try? Come on. Linux is the way forward, and everybody knows that. Security professionals, even a layman, knows that Linux is what everything runs on. They can tell you straight away that Linux is the way forward. Not even the way forward. It's just the only way you can go for a server these days.
Pincasts.
Windows, the security is atrocious on Windows. I remember somebody telling me they were able to get admin privileges on the system whenever somebody opened a PDF as admin, and they had done that on their school's machine, and that made me laugh.
Security issues plague Windows for a couple of reasons. The operating system comes complete with plenty of security holes, and Microsoft is slow to release patches for the holes. Of course, this is not to say that Linux is immune. It isn't, but it's less susceptible to attacks and faster to fix problems. Pingcasts.
Yeah, security is on Windows is horrendous, and yeah, viruses, malware, people hacking into your system. It's not very hard. Somebody was telling me he was sitting in class and he'd mess with the teacher. He'd hack into the Windows machine, lock it, change the password while the guy's lecturing, play with the mouse, do all sorts of stuff to it while he's trying to teach.
All right, now let's go ahead and move on to the next generation of desktops. And of course, a lot of people have been spreading fear, uncertainty, and doubt, saying that Linux is hard. The Linux desktop is harder to use than a Windows desktop, and and those people are talking ancient history. The Linux desktop is just as easy, if not easier, to use, to even customize and configure than Windows can. And of course, you've been impressed by the 3D transparency and possibilities first introduced by Windows Vista, and maybe possibly decided that these unique capabilities were worth the extra money. Well, guess what? Linux has had these enhancements for years. Linux can do it better for free with much less demanding hardware requirements. There are so many different desktops that you can choose from. We're not going to have time to cover them, but the fact of the matter is there is a desktop for everyone out there, and it allows you to balance your workflow in a way that you feel comfortable. There's also Compiz that I run as well, which is usually I use that in the coffee shop when I want to impress my friends, look at my wobbly windows, and look at all these flames and all these other cool things I can do with my desktop. That was one of the things that really attracted me to Linux. But the thing is, if you don't want a taskbar, you can remove it completely. You can configure your desktop to where you can access your menus with a simple mouse gesture or right-click. The possibilities are endless, and this is something that I could just never do very well in Windows. So the possibilities and the options that are available to you are simply amazing in the Linux world. Okay, let's move on to our next topic, the total cost of ownership. All right, well, everybody knows that if you have a small office, it's going to cost you a license for each and every computer that you have in the office. Whereas, if you have a small office that is running Linux on those machines, you can take one copy of Linux and install it on all of the machines without ever having to worry about paying for licensing fees and that sort of thing.
There is some pay-for Linux stuff, like Red Hat is very popular for server stuff, and you pay a subscription for that, but it's not as expensive as Windows, and if you're in school, you can get an academic discount for it.
Red Hat does not cost money. What costs money is the support they offer. You can go and download the ISO for Red Hat as it is. You just won't get support.
Oh, I didn't realize that. I thought you had to pay a subscription to download it, or it would come with that.
Nope, it's free.
Now, I'm going to move on to something else here. C. Smith really loves this about Linux, and that is the sound architecture. Take it away, C. Smith.
I'm actually going to have to pass it over to Osclet because I think he could explain it better.
I don't know about better, but I can definitely explain it. We have one main sound system in Linux. Basically, what I hear from people who transfer from Windows to Linux say there is something about the sound. It's a little bit better. If you listen to Raven Geek, his wife is just been recently transferred over to Linux, and the big thing she said was the sound quality, because she listens to she watches lots of videos and stuff, and she says the sound is like so much better. I don't know what it is, but it is better. I can hear it myself as well. If you listen to it on a Windows and listen back on a Linux, if you have it configured properly, it is much, much better. I do not know why, but it just is.
And interestingly enough, before the show started, I had an opportunity to sit down and do some tinkering around with my audio driver and that sort of thing. And that's just something that Linux does really well, is that you have better control over your audio hardware and that sort of thing. And, if I could make a comparison, I think that the Linux sound system does sound a lot better than the Windows system does. My ear, there's something funny with my ears there, but I mean, if I were to compare, unfortunately I can't compare them side by side because I only have one computer, and I've already removed my Windows 7 partition, but the thing is, I have noticed that there is better sound quality, and I like the precise control that you can have over your audio driver, and I was just playing around with that today. I really love what Linux has to offer. I think it is a competent replacement for Windows. I'd like to take this time to thank everybody who is at home watching this on YouTube. I will have links to everyone on my panel's shows. Be sure to check them out. They are well worth your time.
Today's show was brought to you by the Linux Distro Community. Visit us today at linuxdistrocommunity.com and chat with us on Mumble or in IRC on the Freenode network and the Linux Distro Community channel. The Linux Distro Community. Freedom through the sharing of knowledge.